the life of biking around the world. How we go and can. Well, of course, because I hang a hammock, I need trees. So sometimes I gotta pedal a little past the last of a village, something else, past that, and get myself to an area where there's nice trees, a little path that goes in like that I can hide out at. Here's a good pull out, brings me away from the road a bit, not too far, decent enough trees, flat enough area for this. It's time to take a drink, get chilled out, start hanging the hammock, get all set up for the evening. It usually takes about 15 minutes to get everything set up, depending on how the conditions are. 15 minutes if it's not raining is normal. These days I have a tendency to set up the rain cover. Doesn't matter whether I'm using it or not, but get it ready because I never know if it's going to rain or not. After I get the rain shield set up, I usually start and get my stove set up, start getting that all burning, getting that primed up, set up, so it'll be burning when I start to cook by the time the rest of the hammock is set up. Once that's all going and everything else, and I've got the stove properly working, up and going, and on food set up, starting to cook and get ready, I finish setting up the hammock and get that ready. Still, like I say, it's all within about 15 minutes to get it set up. Break down about the same thing, about 15 minutes packing everything up. Once hammock's in place and all set, I do a test to make sure it's going to sit for the night properly, so I'm not going to fall down on the ground. Set everything up, get ready to finish cooking my meal so I can eat and call it a night. Okay, this is the kitchen setup these days. I have my new stove, which is an old Russian Army or Optimus stove. I'm trying it out, seems to be working okay. It's got a simmer mode, everything else. It's the first time using it, so it's still setting up and getting itself used to it. Over there is my pot cozy that Sang made me, so when I cook and pull off everything, it works a little better. My frying pan, my backup stove. Tonight I'll be having pasta. The water's coming to a boil now. Takes a little longer because I'm using something different here. They call it a white gas, but it's not a very good white gas. It's not a full benzene, so I'll probably go over to petrol, which I find works better, but it's a little messier, so they told me to try this first. Okay, you saw me hang the hammock. I hung the hammock up, and we're going to talk about that. I like these straps the best because they kind of give you easy adjusting. Have the pull-out pin here. Pull them over this, and they clip around that, and then they lock down. That locks it down, so at nighttime I don't do it. Pull up any slack once I've got it there. Up top, I put my rain cover on first, just in case. It is a clear night, but storms do come on and off, so that's set. It's set on a whoopee string system, so I can adjust it here and there. These are called soft shackles. It's a soft shackle with a bead adjustment to lock it in place. I just find them easier to work with than shackles, getting rusty and everything else. Same with the hammock itself. It's on a soft shackle system. So this is there. Alright, then the hammock itself is here. This is a hammock by Dutchware. I like the Dutchware one better. Mark will differentiate with me. This is my first layer under quilt. Sang made it for me. Basically it's to protect the hammock and also keep some heat in. This one's layered with a reflective layer which brings the heat back in, helps me keep a little bit warm at night when it's there, or if the wind is coming, keeps that wind off, keeps that cold butt syndrome away. The next is a simple down layer under quilt. It's a real thin one. I'm able to get away with the thin one because of this layer here. So it's just a real thin, again, Sang made it for me. It's just simply a blanket, a DUI one that's made, so it gives me that. Again, everything stuffs into just a plain old stuff sack at the end, stuff sack here, and of course this is the snake skin to make it easy to keep it off me until I need to use it. Alright, our pasta's up to a full boil, so we can walk away, come back, stir it in between, and we'll talk about the other stuff while we get it. I have my lovely chair that I don't go anywhere without anymore. I like having a chair. Again, this is something Sang made me and fixed for me. It works quite well. I've had to repair it a little bit, but basically it's working quite well. Alright, we're going to put the lid on a little bit and let that boil away. Okay. That's going. Now we're going to go talk about the bike. Okay. The bike has all got Ortlib on it. As we can see, it's AZUB Recumbent Bike. 5-year-old Ortlib bags. They all leak now. Come to the conclusion they all leak here on the side seam here is where they're all starting to leak. It's all started over the last few years. They also leak down here where some of these capsules have come loose and no longer, as you see, move around. They leak there. Any other place like that. Of course, all the straps have broken over the time, so I've had to use string to tie it down here, which you can see on this here is how it ties it down and pulls it down and keeps the wrap on. I carry a couple water bottles. I can always pick up my juice before the end of the night. One side is all my sleeping gear, one side's all my cooking gear, one side's all my summer and backup stuff, and the other side is my winter and some extra food stuff. Yellow bag, I keep my just what I picked up for food for the day and everything else, and that. Oh, lost my lid. Get that one off. That's really boiling now, so I'm going to see if I can turn this down. And this is what Mark wanted to see. Well, it simmer. Well, it looks like it's at a lower simmer now. So the test of this stove, it's there, it's cooking. Seems to be at a little bit slower pace now. Flame underneath. It's down to a slow simmer. So we're going to turn it down just a little bit more. And we seem to be simmering. So that's good. We'll pull it off. So it's at a very low flame. So that's considered a simmer. So that seems to be working good. Back to the bike. All disc brakes these days. We'll talk about that. All little components and all the things later in a review from Mark. Water bottle cages. We went with the big heavy duty ones. A little bit there. I've got the extra water here, so I've got plenty of liters. Altogether I carry 3 in the front. 1.5 of these, and then these are 1 liter each, so that's 5 liters of water I carry, plus whatever else in juice and drinks, drone, everything else, my flags and my lights for everything else. So we're going to go back to cooking. We're set up. We're in a nice little place. We can see that all here. It's a nice camping spot. A little off the road, enough to where we can't be seen. And we'll go from here. Alright, we've set it up on the tripod so we can finish doing this for Mark and everybody else and let us see what we're doing. So basically, normally, like I say, I would have taken this off a while ago. But we're going to burn this out and let this thing do its little trick. As we can see, that's a nice little simmer as opposed to the full-on bore. So the adjustment on this is not bad at all for what it is. It's an old-time stove. We'll talk about stoves in further reviews when I get into some depth for Mark as to what stuff is. But we're going to turn that off, let it blow out. I'm going to pour off the excess water here. I'll put that back on there. It's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. Just going to add my sauce. And I've got my one-pot meal for the night. Normally I'd cook some veggies and a few other things in it, but since I was in a little bit of a hurry at stores tonight, had some phone calls and a few other things along the way. I do live on the road, so for me, this is not just a weekend thing or something else. I actually live on the road, so everything I do is on the road. Talking to family, dealing with friends, dealing with business. So everything is here. So there we go. Dinner is done. Keep it warm while we do other things. We're going to put it in the pot cozy. Sang Sang Enterprises. She's made a beautiful pot cozy for me. That's going to keep the food warm and everything else while I get everything else ready. So while my dinner is getting cooled off enough to eat and everything else, our hammock is set up. I've got out my long sleeve shirt for mosquitoes and stuff like that and all that good stuff, which fortunately tonight we don't have a huge amount of mosquitoes. Normally then I get the bike ready. I move it to a position that's a little better for sleeping. It's behind me. I can hear somebody if they're trying to get stuff, steal it. It's not much you can do if they come to rob you. It is what it is. In the meanwhile, I close up all the bags, so if it does rain tonight, whatever's here doesn't hopefully get too damp. Anything that's for breakfast and that I leave that doesn't matter is there. I latch the normal top bag up here. I latch to the steering so the bike isn't easy to move and everything else. This is the last bag I'll deal with. This is the stove and everything else, but I have to wait for the stove to cool so I can get that and put that away. So at the same time, I'll wait until I clean the pots and pans. I'll put it all away, and that'll be the last thing I do before I climb in the hammock and then edit this video. In the meanwhile, the next thing we do is our daily cleaning. So I've got my towel here, I got my soap, and I got my water. So we'll do our little sponge bath. Don't know if you guys need to see that, probably not, but I'm going to sponge bath myself off before I eat so I'm a little less stinky, the mosquitoes a little better, and get myself ready. So we'll talk to you after. Come morning time, it's time to pack up the hammock, put everything away, change some clothes, get into my biking outfit, put up my sleeping bag. It's the first thing I normally do. Then move the bike around, start putting everything into the places and packing everything up for the day. Have my breakfast and all those good things. Move on. One nice thing about the hammock setup is once you get it all set up like this and you have everything in normal, it's just easy to clip on, clip off, stuff up in the stuff sacks, put everything away. It's just pull in, pull out. And on rainy days, which you'll see coming up here, it's about the same. The difference is you just start with the rain fly down first and build everything underneath it. And then in the morning, when you pack up, you take everything apart underneath the rain tarp and then pack up the rain tarp last. We'll talk about that later. Okay, it's morning time, so we're finishing packing up everything else. We've done everything. Went over there, dug a little hole, did our morning business. Yeah, our forest grump. Okay, that's done. So now we come back and we'll finish break down our campsite. Washed our bowls, everything else, a little bit of water. They're cleaned and they can go in the temporary pack. Our solar panel set up for riding. We've checked all our bags. They're all tied down. They're all zipped up. They're all closed. All good. Everything's there. Now we have our trash. Well, as people say, carry it in. You can carry it out. It's twice as light as when it went in. So what I usually do is try to put everything down to the smallest amount possible or something. So I find if I have a jar or something, I just put everything back in the jar. Close that up, put that there. As I say, it's light. It was 500 grams coming in, it's less than 100 or so odd grams going out. So I just put that in my pack here until I get to a trash place. Same thing with the bottle. It goes right back where it was before, which on my bike is here, where I kept my little leftover drink there for the morning to get me through until I find the next place. So everything's packed. We'll check the rest of the ground. Up, banana peel. Banana peels are good for your mosquito bites. Rub a little on your mosquito bites that you've gotten in the morning and the evening time. This is biodegradable. It's gonna be compost. So to throw this out here, nothing. Some will argue, don't do it. Others say, well, whatever. My attitude is it's compost. If it's compost, it's back to nature. Take my chair, put my chair back in its little home again as well. It's taken me a while to figure out all the little homes for everything on the bike. We'll talk about that in another video in detail, about racks, clip ups, this stuff, that stuff. Got my glasses. I'm all packed up. I'm ready to go. See you guys on the road again. Well, here you can see we're having a rain day, so of course it was raining last night. Pissing down rain, so we set up the tarp and we kept nice, cozy, warm and dry underneath it. But in the morning we still have to put away everything that's wet. It's drizzling. So as you see, I put everything away from underneath the tarp so it stays as dry as possible. You know, can't guarantee it's 100% dry, but it does do the job of keeping it much drier. The bike is underneath the tarp, everything else, so putting everything in there, as you see in the bags and everything, it's keeping it from being too wet. And what I normally do is close up all the tarp bags and everything else and get that. Then the last things we do is we're going to take the tarp down, you know, and get our tarp out and all that stuff. And then of course we can't put the tarp back in the bags because if we put the tarp in, it's just going to get everything soaking wet. So we have to pack the tarp separately, and then later hopefully there'll be some sun and we can dry it out and get it as we're drying for the day. But it's still basically the same principle. Everything gets packed up, everything gets rolled up, everything gets back in the snake sleeves and everything else. Just the difference is it'll be wet. So if it's wet,